Okay. Hi, everybody. So back again, proud Gen X member, doing whatever it is we do these days. Today I'm going to be talking about this book right here, Slaying the Dragon. It's the story of Dungeons and Dragons and how TSR got its kick off and kind of crept into the ethos of the world. So role-playing games didn't really exist until Gary Gygax came along and sort of invented the field, carved it out of nothing, and built this empire called uh, Tactics, Strategies, and Rules (TSR). They put out Dungeons and Dragons and other games throughout time that everybody loved because it put you in the game. It made you use your imagination. It kind of made you come up with the story as you went along. People still play them today. I still play them today a little bit. Okay, more than a little. But if you grew up in the 80s, this was everywhere. There was sort of that panic where parents thought we were all going to start summoning demons accidentally by playing this game, none of which is true. Some guy that went on TV and said, "Hey, if you throw the dice in the fire, the dice scream." Dude, they're plastic. It's called outgassing. It's not screaming dice. It's just stuff that happens when you burn plastic. And then eventually, Gary Gygax, like a bunch of people who are creative types, who built this company essentially out of nothing, but just sort of force of will. The company came bigger than he could actually run. Some people are great at running companies that exist in a garage or a basement, and you got 30, 40 people, and they're really good at that. This grew beyond that, and it grew kind of overnight. And it just, there was this guy who kind of before that didn't really run anything big, all of a sudden is supposed to keep up with all this stuff and run it like a business so that it can actually make money and, pay the creators who are building this thing to keep doing their job, because money doesn't just magically appear. You have to, sell a product sooner or later. And then income, different management, income arguments about who owns what, who owns how much. And eventually Gary Gygax kicked to the side. We all know that, not a big surprise. Somebody else came in to run the company who was supposed to be much better at this sort of thing. And the fans rebelled. And this book essentially is the story of that. It's a nonfiction, very well researched book. Hats off to Ben Riggs. He did a great job writing this thing. But it's essentially a how-to manual for how to not run a company. Okay. You could use this thing in business schools, use the history of TSR in business schools to say, look, this is what you don't do if you want to run a successful company. And you can pick on Wizards of the Coast all you want, but Wizards has it now. Wizards started Magic the Gathering, and they had enough money to buy it out. But had they not come along and bought it out, Dungeons and Dragons could have died. I mean, it could have gone away completely from the face of the earth and never been available again, except in sort of leftover stuff that you can buy on eBay now. No new content ever again, and I know some people look at the new content like, oh, I won't play it. Well, okay, fine, but some of the new content's not bad. I'll play version 2 or second edition. I'll play fifth edition. Give me a table with Dungeons and Dragons and I'm there, man. I love it. As long as you enjoy the people you're playing with, which edition you're playing to me is kind of irrelevant. It's about the people that you're there with and the stories that you come up with and the creativity it kind of fosters. That's really the fun part for me. Edition is sort of a secondary thing. I do have my preferred edition, but by and large, for me, it's more about the creativity that it fosters. But interestingly, in this book, the thing that really came to light was that TSR, as it existed, was just not viable. They were building content that was so good that it was so expensive, it was just never going to be profitable with the amount of sales they had. So they have a finite universe to sell this stuff in, and they're only going to buy so many copies. And if you put out a bunch of stuff that costs a lot more than you sell it for, well, your company's kind of doomed. So in comes Wizards of the Coast, and they're actually running it like a business now. And sure enough, it's turning profit. Like it or not, that's what it takes as a business to survive. So if you want a game called Dungeons and Dragons and you want new content to come along, well, somebody's got to do that. And they have to at least make enough money to meet their payroll, which TSR was not doing. They were deeply in debt. They got to the point where they were trying to pay off the printers who printed the stuff. There was just such this mound of debt that came along with it because they spent so much on product development, and then they tried to get it in the hands of people at a reasonable price, which, hey, I'm happy they did. But by the same token, it could have been a lot better run. And while I love the hobby, I love the game, I love the fact that Gary Gygax just pounded this thing until it became the popular game that it is today. It almost didn't survive. A very well written book, very interesting read, and very, very, very informative. So if you get the chance, take a look at that. Thanks, everybody.